In the heart of a small, picturesque town surrounded by rolling hills and ancient oak trees, two children from vastly different worlds found each other. Emma Harrison, the only child of one of the wealthiest families in town, was a bright and curious girl. Her parents, both successful business people, provided her with everything she could ever want: lavish toys, beautiful clothes, and the best education money could buy. Yet, despite all the luxuries, there was a loneliness in Emma's life that no amount of wealth could fill. Her parents were often away on business trips, leaving her in the care of nannies and tutors. Liam Bennett, on the other hand, had grown up in stark contrast to Emma's privileged life. His parents were hardworking but poor, struggling to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Their small cottage at the edge of town was humble but filled with love and laughter. Tragically, Liam's parents passed away when he was just 10 years old, leaving him to fend for himself. The townspeople helped where they could, but Liam quickly learned to be self-reliant, doing odd jobs and chores to survive. One summer afternoon, Emma wandered into the town's park, a place where she often escaped the confines of her grand mansion. She was drawn to the park's simple beauty, its blooming flowers, towering trees, and the serene lake that reflected the sky like a mirror. As she walked along the path, she noticed a boy sitting by the lake, skipping stones across the water. His clothes were worn, and his shoes had seen better days, but there was a calm determination in his eyes that intrigued her. "Hi," Emma said softly as she approached him. Liam looked up, surprised to see someone like her in this part of the park. "Hi," he replied, a little wary. "Can I sit here?" she asked, gesturing to the spot beside him. Liam nodded, and for a while, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stones skip across the water. Eventually, Emma broke the silence, asking, "Do you come here often?" "Every day," Liam said with a shrug. "It's peaceful here. What about you?" Emma smiled. "Sometimes. It's nice to get away from home." From that day on, Emma and Liam met regularly in the park. They talked about everything and nothing. Emma shared stories of her travels with her parents, while Liam told her about the adventures he had in the woods nearby. Despite their different backgrounds, they found common ground in their shared love for the outdoors and their desire to escape the pressures of their lives. As the seasons changed, so did the bond between Emma and Liam. They became inseparable, spending hours exploring the woods, building forts from fallen branches, and chasing each other through the meadows. Emma was fascinated by Liam's resourcefulness and resilience. He knew how to fish, how to build a fire, and how to navigate the dense forest, all skills that she admired but had never learned. Liam, in turn, was captivated by Emma's kindness and generosity. She brought him books from her family's library, teaching him to read and write, and often shared her lunch with him, insisting that he try the fancy sandwiches her cook prepared. Their friendship deepened, and soon, it became clear to both of them that their feelings were more than just platonic. On Liam's 12th birthday, Emma surprised him with a small gift, a leather-bound journal she had found in her father's study. "For your thoughts and adventures," she had said with a smile. Liam was overwhelmed by the gesture. No one had ever given him anything so thoughtful before. "Thank you, Emma," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're welcome," she replied, her cheeks flushing with happiness. "You're my best friend, Liam." "And you're mine," he whispered, tucking the journal safely into his pocket. That day, as they sat under the shade of the old oak tree, Liam made a silent promise to himself. No matter what happened, he would always protect Emma, just as she had protected him from the loneliness that once consumed him. By the time they were 16, Emma and Liam's friendship had blossomed into a tender, unspoken love. They still spent every moment they could together, but there was a new tension in the air, an awareness of each other that hadn't been there before. Liam had grown taller, his shoulders broader from the physical labor he did to survive. Emma, too, had changed. She was no longer the little girl who had wandered into the park years ago, but a young woman with dreams and aspirations of her own. One crisp autumn evening, as they walked home from the park, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold, Liam finally gathered the courage to speak his heart. "Emma," he began, his voice hesitant, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you." She turned to him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What is it, Liam?" He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. I think I'm in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Liam feared he had ruined everything. But then, Emma smiled. A smile so radiant it took his breath away. "I love you too, Liam," she whispered, reaching out to take his hand. Relief and joy surged through him, and without thinking, he pulled her into a tight embrace. "I was so scared you wouldn't feel the same," he confessed, his voice muffled against her hair. Emma laughed softly. "How could I not? You've been my best friend, my confidant, my everything." They stood there for a long time, holding each other as the sun dipped below the horizon, their love finally out in the open. For the next year, Emma and Liam's love grew stronger, though they kept it a secret from the world. They knew that their relationship would never be accepted by Emma's parents, who had always envisioned a more suitable match for their daughter, someone wealthy, educated, and well-connected. Liam, with his humble background and orphan status, would never meet their standards. But for Emma and Liam, none of that mattered. They found joy in the simple things: stolen moments at the park, long walks through the woods, and late-night conversations under the stars. They talked about their future, dreaming of a life where they could be together without hiding. One evening, as they lay side by side in the grass, gazing up at the starry sky, Emma spoke of her dreams. "I want to travel the world, Liam," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I want to see all the places we've read about in those books." Liam turned to look at her, his heart swelling with love. "And I want to be right there with you," he replied. "No matter where you go, I'll follow." Emma smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Do you promise?" Liam nodded, reaching out to wipe the tear away. "I promise." Back at the Harrison mansion, Emma's mother wasted no time in confronting her daughter. The moment they walked through the grand entrance, Mrs. Harrison ordered the staff to leave them alone. She turned to Emma, her face a mask of fury and disappointment. "How could you, Emma?" Mrs. Harrison began, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "How could you disgrace this family by associating with someone like him? A poor, parentless boy with nothing to his name." Emma, though terrified of her mother's wrath, stood her ground. She had always been taught to be strong, to stand up for what she believed in, and this was no different. "Mother, Liam is not just someone. He is kind, caring, and everything I could ever want in a person. He may not have wealth, but he has a heart of gold, and that's what matters to me." But Mrs. Harrison was unmoved. "You're young, Emma, and you don't understand the world yet. Love is not enough. You need someone who can provide for you, who can maintain the lifestyle you're accustomed to. Someone who can elevate our family, not drag it down." Emma shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't care about any of that. I care about Liam. I love him." Mrs. Harrison's expression hardened, and she spoke in a tone that brooked no argument. "You are going to end this foolishness, Emma. You will never see that boy again. Do you understand me? We have plans for you, and they do not involve some charity case." When Emma tried to protest, Mrs. Harrison cut her off sharply. "Enough. If you refuse to obey me, I will have no choice but to take drastic measures." Emma's heart sank as she realized just how serious her mother was. "What do you mean, drastic measures?" Her mother's next words chilled her to the bone. "If you do not break off this relationship, we will send you far away, Emma. I will not allow this family to be shamed by a foolish girl's whims. You'll go to the UK to study, and you won't come back until you've forgotten all about him." Emma stared at her mother in disbelief. "You can't do that." But the steely resolve in Mrs. Harrison's eyes told her otherwise. "Try me, Emma. I will do whatever it takes to protect you from yourself and from that boy." Emma knew her mother was serious, and she had no choice but to meet Liam to tell him what had happened. They met in their secret spot in the park, the place where their love had first blossomed. As she approached, she saw him sitting under the oak tree, the journal she had given him open in his lap. He looked up and smiled when he saw her, but the smile faded when he noticed the tears in her eyes. "Liam," Emma began, her voice breaking. "My mother, she found out about us." Liam's face hardened with concern. What did she say? Emma swallowed, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. She's sending me away, Liam. To the UK. She doesn't want us to be together. Liam felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under him. When are you leaving? In a week, Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. But, Liam, I don't want to go. I want to stay here with you. Liam reached out and took her hands in his. And I want that too, Emma. But if your parents are sending you away, there's nothing we can do to stop them. But I can't leave you, Emma cried, her tears finally breaking free. I can't bear the thought of being so far from you, Liam. Liam pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as she cried against his chest. He fought back his own tears, knowing that he had to be strong for both of them. We'll get through this, Emma. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes. And when you come back, we'll be together again. I promise. They spent their remaining days together in a bittersweet haze, trying to make the most of every moment before the inevitable separation. They returned to the park every day, carving their names into the oak tree, leaving behind a physical reminder of the love they had shared there. On the night before her departure, they met one last time under the oak tree. Liam handed Emma a small, wrapped gift. Open it when you're on the plane, he told her, his voice choked with emotion. Emma nodded, unable to speak. They held each other tightly, as if by sheer force of will they could prevent the dawn from coming. But time marched on, and eventually they had to say goodbye. I love you, Emma, Liam whispered as he kissed her one last time. I love you too, Liam, she replied, her voice shaking. I'll come back to you, I promise. The next morning, Emma was whisked away to the airport by her parents. She stared out the car window, watching the town she loved so much pass by in a blur, her heart breaking with each passing mile. She clutched Liam's gift tightly in her lap, wondering what he had given her. At the airport, her mother gave her a stern reminder. Focus on your studies, Emma. This is your future we're talking about. Forget about that boy and concentrate on becoming the woman you're meant to be. Emma nodded silently, though in her heart she knew she could never forget Liam. As the plane took off, she finally unwrapped his gift. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant in the shape of a tree, the oak tree that had been their sanctuary. A note was tucked inside the box. No matter where you go, this tree will remind you of us. I'll be waiting for you, under the oak tree, when you come home. Love, Liam. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she clutched the necklace to her heart. She swore to herself that she would return to him, no matter how long it took. Back in the small town, Liam's world was shattered. Without Emma, life seemed to lose its color and meaning. The days passed in a blur of monotony, each one feeling heavier than the last. He tried to carry on, focusing on his work and helping around town, but the void Emma had left behind was too deep to fill. As the months dragged on, the pain of their separation became unbearable. Liam struggled with the reality of her absence, knowing that she was thousands of miles away, living a life that no longer included him. He found himself withdrawing from the world, spending more and more time alone in the woods, where he could escape the constant reminders of what he had lost. In a desperate attempt to escape the memories, Liam made a difficult decision. He enlisted in the army, hoping that the discipline, structure, and distance from his hometown would help him move on. But military life proved to be a harsh and unforgiving environment. The grueling training, the constant demands, and the isolation from everything familiar took a toll on him, both physically and mentally. Liam soon realized that he had made a mistake. The army couldn't fill the void left by Emma, and the further he tried to run from his feelings, the more they consumed him. After a year of struggling, he decided to leave the army, returning to his hometown a changed man. The boy who had once been full of hope and love was now hardened by the realities of life. Back in his hometown, Liam tried to rebuild his life. He took up a job as a firefighter, finding some solace in the act of helping others. The work was demanding and dangerous, but it gave him a sense of purpose, something to focus on other than the pain of his past. Though he was surrounded by people, Liam kept to himself, his heart too wounded to risk loving again. The townspeople admired him for his bravery and dedication, but they also noticed the sadness that seemed to hang over him like a shadow. He was respected, but always a bit distant, as if a part of him had been left behind in those woods with Emma. He visited their oak tree often, sitting beneath its branches and remembering the days when life had been simpler, when he had been happy. He kept the promise he had made to her, even though a part of him feared she might never return. Still, he couldn't let go of the hope that one day, she would come back to him and they could start over. And so, Liam waited, holding on to the memories of the love that had once made him feel alive, hoping against hope that it wasn't lost forever. 10 years had passed since Emma had left for the UK, and the small town she once called home had changed in subtle ways. The trees seemed taller, the buildings older, and the streets more worn. But some things remained the same. The park, the woods, and the oak tree that had once been the center of her world with Liam. Now a doctor, Emma had returned to her hometown, her heart filled with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She had thought of Liam every day, wondering how life had treated him, hoping against hope that he hadn't forgotten her. Emma had grown into a confident and accomplished woman, but the thought of seeing Liam again made her feel like the nervous teenager she had once been. She wondered how much he had changed, whether he had moved on, or if he even remembered the promises they had made under the old oak tree. Her parents were proud of her achievements, but they still didn't know the depth of the love she had carried for Liam all these years. They had assumed that her time in the UK had healed her of that youthful infatuation, as they had called it. Emma had let them believe it, keeping her feelings to herself as she threw herself into her studies and career. But now, standing on the familiar streets of her hometown, all those emotions came rushing back. On her first day back, Emma decided to visit the oak tree. She needed to see it, to remind herself that what she and Liam had shared was real, that it hadn't been just a dream. As she walked through the park, memories of their time together flooded her mind. His smile, the way he held her hand, the way he made her feel like she was the only person in the world who mattered. When she reached the tree, she saw that it had grown taller and stronger, just as they had promised each other they would. She ran her fingers over the rough bark, finding the spot where they had carved their names all those years ago. The initials were still there, though time had worn them down a bit. Seeing them brought tears to her eyes, a mixture of joy and sorrow. As she stood there, lost in thought, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching. She turned, her heart pounding, and saw a figure emerging from the trees. It was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a familiar but more rugged face. His dark hair was shorter, his features more defined, and his eyes carried a depth of emotion that spoke of experiences far beyond their youthful love. It was Liam. For a moment, they both stood frozen, staring at each other as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Then, slowly, Liam stepped forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "Emma?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief and something else. "Hope, maybe?" "Liam," she whispered, her voice trembling. He looked different, more hardened by life. But the moment their eyes met, she knew that the boy she had fallen in love with was still there, somewhere beneath the surface. For a long time, they just looked at each other, the years of separation. The initial shock of their reunion slowly gave way to a cautious, tender reconnection. They decided to take a walk, just as they had done so many times before. The town had changed, but the rhythm of their steps together felt comfortingly familiar. There was a lot to catch up on. 10 years worth of stories, experiences, and emotions, but neither knew where to start. "So, you're a doctor now," Liam finally said, breaking the silence. His tone was warm, but there was a hint of something else. Pride, perhaps? Or maybe it was a touch of sadness, knowing that they had spent the last decade apart. Emma nodded, smiling softly. "Yes, I just finished my residency. I wanted to come back home and, well, start over, I suppose." Liam nodded, his gaze fixed ahead as they walked. "I'm glad you did. The town could use someone like you." They continued to talk, sharing the details of their lives since they had parted ways. Emma told him about her years in the UK, how she had immersed herself in her studies, and how she had traveled to different countries, learning about different cultures and medical practices. Liam, in turn, spoke of his time in the army, the challenges he had faced, and his decision to become a firefighter. "It's dangerous work," he said with a shrug, "but it's fulfilling. I like being able to help people, to make a difference, you know?" Emma looked at him, her heart swelling with admiration. "You've always been like that, Liam. Even when we were kids, you were always looking out for others." Liam smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, well, life has a way of shaping you. I guess I just wanted to do something that mattered." As they walked and talked, the old connection between them began to rekindle, though it was now layered with the complexities of adulthood. They were no longer the same carefree teenagers who had once dreamed of a future together. They were two people who had been shaped by life's hardships, who had grown and changed in ways they couldn't have predicted. But underneath it all, the bond they had once shared was still there, waiting to be rediscovered. As much as Emma and Liam wanted to pick up where they had left off, it wasn't that simple. Liam, especially, had built walls around his heart to protect himself from the pain of losing Emma again. He had been hurt too deeply to let her back in without hesitation, and the scars of that pain ran deep. One evening, after a particularly long and difficult day at work, Liam found himself at the park again, sitting under the oak tree where they had first confessed their love. He didn't expect Emma to show up, but she did, almost as if she knew he needed her. She approached him cautiously, sensing the turmoil he was trying to hide. "Liam, are you okay?" she asked, sitting down beside him. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm fine, Emma. Just a lot on my mind." She didn't press him, knowing that he needed time to open up, but she couldn't ignore the distance he was putting between them. "Liam, I know things are different now, and I don't expect us to just pick up where we left off, but I still care about you, and I want to be there for you, if you'll let me." Liam looked at her, his eyes filled with conflicting emotions. "It's not that simple, Emma. We're not the same people we were back then. I've changed. You've changed, and I don't want to get hurt again." Emma reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I understand, Liam, but I've changed too, and I'm stronger now. I know what I want, and I'm willing to fight for it, for us. I've spent the last 10 years missing you, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been." Her words cut through the walls he had built, and for the first time in a long time, Liam allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. But the fear of losing her again still held him back. As much as they tried to resist, it seemed as though fate was determined to bring Emma and Liam back together. They often found themselves crossing paths, whether at the local coffee shop, at community events, or during emergencies when Liam was on duty and Emma was called in to treat the injured. One such incident occurred on a stormy night when a fire broke out in a building on the outskirts of town. Liam and his team were the first on the scene, battling the flames with everything they had. Emma was called to the site as well, setting up a makeshift triage area to treat those who had been injured or overcome by smoke. Amidst the chaos, Emma caught sight of Liam rushing into the burning building to save a trapped family. Her heart pounded with fear, knowing how dangerous the situation was. She watched anxiously, her breath catching in her throat every time the flames flared up, praying that he would make it out safely. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Liam emerged from the building, carrying a young child in his arms. The crowd that had gathered around cheered, but Emma's relief was short-lived when she saw that Liam had been injured. He had sustained a deep gash on his arm, and his face was streaked with soot and blood. Ignoring the protests of the other medics, Emma rushed to his side, her medical training kicking in as she assessed his injuries. "Liam, you're hurt," she said, her voice trembling with concern. Liam tried to brush it off, but the pain was evident in his eyes. "It's just a scratch, Emma. There are others who need your help more than I do." But Emma was having none of it. "You're my patient now, Liam. Let me take care of you." She quickly bandaged his arm, her hands trembling slightly as she worked. The sight of him hurt, of him putting himself in danger, had shaken her more than she cared to admit. When she was done, she looked up at him, her eyes filled with worry. "Why do you always have to be the hero?" she asked softly, her voice breaking with emotion. "You scare me to death, Liam." Liam gazed down at her, his tough exterior cracking just a little. "It's who I am, Emma. I can't stand by when people are in danger. I've been trying to protect others for so long. Maybe because I couldn't protect us." Her heart ached at his words. "Liam, you don't have to carry that burden alone. We've both been hurt, but that doesn't mean we can't find a way back to each other." Liam looked into her eyes, seeing the love and concern that had never faded, despite the years apart. He knew she was right, but the fear of losing her again still gripped him tightly. "I'm afraid, Emma," he confessed. "I don't know if I can go through that kind of pain again." Emma reached up, gently cupping his face in her hands. "I'm afraid too. But we've both changed. We've both grown. We're stronger now, and if we face this together, I believe we can make it work. I love you, Liam. I never stopped." Liam felt something inside him begin to thaw, the walls he had built around his heart starting to crumble. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to hope, to believe that maybe they could have the future they had once dreamed of. "I love you too, Emma," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I've always loved you. I just didn't think I deserved you anymore." Emma smiled through her tears. "You've always deserved love, Liam, and I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." After that night, something shifted between them. The walls that had kept them apart began to fall, brick by brick. They started spending more time together, rediscovering the bond that had always connected them. They talked about their past, about the dreams they had shared, and about the people they had become in the years since. Liam still struggled with his fears, but Emma's unwavering support and love gave him the strength to confront them. He began to open up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone else, sharing the pain he had carried since she left, the guilt he felt for not being able to hold on to their love. Emma, in turn, shared the loneliness she had felt in the UK, the longing for him that had never gone away, even as she built a successful career. She told him about the necklace he had given her, how it had been a constant reminder of the love they had shared, and how it had given her the strength to keep going. One evening, as they sat under the oak tree, Liam took Emma's hand in his and looked into her eyes. "Emma, I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to build a life with you, the life we always dreamed of. I know it won't be easy, but I'm ready to fight for us, for our future." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but they were tears of joy. "I've been waiting 10 years to hear you say that, Liam. I'm ready to. Whatever it takes, we'll face it together." Their love, once fragile and uncertain, had grown strong in the crucible of time and adversity. They knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to walk it together, hand in hand. Soon after, they began planning their future in earnest. Liam proposed to Emma under the oak tree where it all began, with the same silver necklace he had given her all those years ago. "Marry me, Emma," he said, his voice filled with hope and love. "Let's make the future we always dreamed of." Emma, her heart overflowing with happiness, said yes without hesitation. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. Emma's parents, who had finally come to realize the depth of their daughter's love for Liam, reluctantly gave their blessing. They had seen the change in Emma since her return, how much happier and more fulfilled she was with Liam by her side. The ceremony took place in the park, under the oak tree that had witnessed their journey from childhood friends to lovers, from separated souls to a reunited couple. As they exchanged vows, they felt the weight of the past lift from their shoulders, replaced by the promise of a future filled with love, hope, and the strength they had found in each other. After the wedding, Emma and Liam settled into a new life together. Emma continued her work as a doctor, dedicating herself to caring for the people in their town. Liam remained a firefighter, finding fulfillment in helping others and knowing that Emma was always there waiting for him at the end of each day. Their love, tested by time and trials, blossomed into something even more beautiful than they had ever imagined. They built a home together, a place filled with warmth, laughter, and the kind of love that only grows stronger with time. And one day, as they sat on the porch of their home, Emma resting her head on Liam's shoulder, they knew that they had finally found the happiness they had always dreamed of. The oak tree continued to stand tall in the park, a symbol of the love that had withstood the test of time. And as the years passed, Emma and Liam returned to it often, bringing their children to play beneath its branches, telling them the story of how love had brought them back together against all odds. They had faced the storms of life and come out stronger on the other side. Their love was a testament to the power of hope, resilience, and the belief that some things, like true love, are worth waiting for. And as they looked out at the world they had built together, they knew that they had finally found their happily ever after. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.